Okay,
so welcome everyone, and we start with the teachings today. The teachings is on the three principal elements of the path. It is a text that is composed by the great Lama Tsongkhapa, and it was given due to the request from the principal, from the main administration of the Principality of Tsalo. So in this occasion, both for the person who delivers the teachings and also for the audience who receive it, it is very important to engage in this activity with the proper motivation. The proper motivation here is to listen with the mind of bodhicitta. By doing this, we have a great benefit. We derive great benefit because this is a powerful mind that can easily remove great and serious amount of negativity. Therefore, I'm listening to these teachings because I aspire to reach as quickly as possible the state of Buddhahood in order to be able to benefit all mother sentient beings. With these thoughts in your mind are just your motivation for listening. So we mentioned here that we have to listen with the mind of bodhicitta. So let's explain what that means. First of all, you have to recognize the kindness of all sentient beings in all occasions. So since I have taken countless lives, I must have had countless mothers. So every sentient being has played the role of the mother. There is no one who has not been a mother to me. When they were a mother to me, they were all kind, but also they were very kind to me when they were not a mother. So in all occasions they are kind. So today, recognizing their kindness, I wish to repay this kindness and say, for their sake, may I reach the state of Buddhahood. So this is what it means. Okay, can I start? Okay, so we start with the text. The first line is the line that says homage to the most venerable teachers. So as you see here, Lama Tsongkhapa is paying homage to the most venerable teachers. This is customary. It's an expression of homage. And this is what holy beings do at the beginning of such an activity, such an endeavor. So he's following the custom as a holy being. Okay, so we'll begin with the first verse saying, I shall explain here to the best of my ability the essential points of all the scriptures of the conqueror. So what are the essential points? The essential points are renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct view. But from these three, what is the real essence is correct view. And this is why when we talk about the Heart Sutra, so the word heart and essence here are the same word, right? Different English words for the same Tibetan word. So the heart or the essence, it is called the essence of the Heart Sutra because it is explaining the middle way view. So this is the real essence. And then it talks about the path acclaimed by all the excellent bodhisattvas. So this obviously refers to the mind of bodhicitta, and the gateway for fortunate ones aspiring liberation. So this refers to renunciation. In the first line says, I shall explain here to the best of my ability. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, as much as I can, I will explain this. So the second verse says, you who are not attached to the joys of cyclic existence, who strive to make meaningful this life of leisure and opportunity, and who place your trust in the path that pleases the conquerors, all fortunate ones, open your hearts and listen. So here the Lama Tsongkhapa is urging the disciples to listen carefully. So he says, listen, I have something important to say. So what is it that he has to say? The important thing he wants to discuss is that we have obtained a precious human rebirth that is something which is extremely rare to find. And we establish the rarity of the precious human rebirth in terms of the causes, by means of an example, and also by means of its nature. So let's explain how hard it is by means of an example. They say, imagine that there is a great ocean. And in that, on the surface of the ocean, there is a gold yoke that is carried away by the waves. And in the depths of the ocean lives a turtle that is blind. And that blind turtle surfaces up once every 100 years. So they say, imagine what are the chances that this blind turtle emerges, and as it emerges, its head goes through the yolk, and the yolk ends around its neck. Since the turtle is blind, it's not actively seeking that yolk. So what are the chances of this happening? Very slim. So similarly, the chances of getting a precious human rebirth are very slim. Okay, then we have to say that it is difficult to find in terms of the causes, because it requires the accumulation of various causes that are difficult to establish. So this precious human rebirth is very difficult to find. We can show this through the example. We can show this due to the requirement of causes. You have got it this one time now. It's very meaningful. Make sure you don't waste it. So this is the thing he wants to talk about. So when we talk about taking rebirth in cyclic existence, coming as humans in that cyclic existence, and it is a tradition, and you will find it in every temple and monastery, that usually there is a big, large tanka of the wheel of existence. Now, you have a tanka over there in the center, but it's not big enough. It's small. However, the students can take a photo, and then you can enlarge it in your iPad, in your phone, and you can look and say, okay, this is what it is. This is what is included here. Okay. Okay, so as we say, we do have a tanka. It is a painting. It's not a painting that was kind of like invented by a painter, like by a tanka painter. So it's not that the tanka painter just painted there whatever came to his head. This is what the Buddha has taught, and this is according to the instructions of the Buddha. Okay, so as we say, that this painting was produced exactly according to the instructions of Buddha Shakyamuni. So this is the story. There was, in ancient times, at the time of the historical Buddha, we had the king of Gaya. So these days, the area is called Bodh Gaya, but back then it was just called Gaya. All right, so we had a king there, it was a Buddhist king, and one day he received a very expensive present. So that present came from one of the high officials from another area. Okay, so this other area was considered to be like at the periphery, far away from the central area of Bodh Gaya. So this great official who came to visit the king of Bodh Gaya brought with him an armor made of lapis lazuli. So lapis lazuli is a very expensive precious stone. So to make such a present to the king, that was extremely impressive. And the king was thinking, I received such an expensive present, and what am I going to give them in return? Right? So I have to send another present in return. So he didn't know what to give to match the value of that present. And he went and saw the Buddha and explained the situation. And the Buddha said, don't worry, this is a perfect opportunity. I tell you what to do. We have to produce this drawing. And what you have to put in the drawing is this and this and this and this. All right. So it was, the Buddha explained it. It had to be done. And he says, okay, it's going to take 1 week to produce this beautiful painting. And after 1 week, you can take this and give it as a present. It will be the perfect present. Okay, so first of all, we see that at the very center of that, we have 3 animals that are related to each other. We have the snake, we have a bird, and we have a pig. They represent the 3 poisons. The pig represents confusion, ignorance. The bird represents attachment, and the snake represents hatred. So the inner circle has the 3 animals, and then beyond that, we have a representation of someone ascending and someone descending. All right, so in the descending, what is represented there is taking rebirth in the hills as a hungry ghost and as an animal. And in the ascending order, you will find the humans and also the gods of the desire and the formless realm. So have a good look at this. You will recognize it. So you will be able to identify in the lower migrations in the hills. There will be hot hills, there will be cold hills. You will find the hungry ghosts with the big stomachs. You will find the animals and so forth. On the other side, you will identify the humans and then the gods of the desire and the formless realm. You will identify the three realms of existence. Okay, so then you will find on the outer rim, there are actually 12 sections. So those 12 sections are the 12 links of interdependence. Everything begins with ignorance, and then you will see how there is craving and taking and creating karma. So you will find different all those links are represented with different drawings. So you will find, for example, the potter that is making pot, the monkey that is taking fruit from the tree, and so forth. Look at it. If you look at it, you will identify all these sections. So this drawing that we have there is a drawing according to the instruction of the Buddha himself. So, as I say, the Buddha himself gave the detailed instructions to the king of the Gaia, and the painting was created exactly according to these instructions. When the painting was completed, the king packaged it and sent it off as a response present to the king of this other location. And it is said that when the recipient actually opened up and looked at this representation of cyclic existence, he had the realization and became an arhat. So it had an incredible effect upon him. This is the effect. So keep in mind that this is not an ordinary painting. It is something that was, you could say, was painted or commissioned, explained by the Buddha himself. The tradition in Tibet and in India is that you would have a very large tanka, usually by the door, by the entrance of the temple. So have a good look at it. Yeah. So as we say here, that particular painting of the wheel of existence is not something that we invented ourselves. The Buddha himself had explained. The Buddha himself explained to the king, you put this, you draw that, you draw that. So it is something which is extremely precious. If you look at it, if you contemplate the meaning of all this, it's a means for reversing your attachment for cyclic existence. So Rinpoche is urging everyone to have a good look at it. Okay, so as I say, we should be able to identify different types of rebirth in that painting. We have the hell beings, and in that we will see those in the hot hells who are experiencing the intense suffering of those fires of the hot hells. We have those in the cold hells who experience the suffering of freezing. We have the hungry ghost who experience the suffering of perpetual hunger and thirst because they never get anything to eat and drink. And then we have the animals that actually we can see, and we know the suffering directly. We can perceive that. Also, we can recognize in that painting, we can recognize the humans. There is a representation of the gods and the demigods. So you can see that they are fighting, they are at war. So you can recognize all these types of rebirth. Okay, so as I say, there is a representation of the war that is raging between the demigods and the gods. So why? What is the cause for this conflict? The cause of the conflict is that the location where the demigods abide is at the very base of Mount Meru, so they are at the level of the ocean. Whilst the gods occupy higher levels, higher up the Mount Meru. And what they have, the gods have in their land, is the wish-fulfilling tree. So the wish-fulfilling tree has these amazing properties, and it has this amazing fruit. So the demigods, they generate quite a lot of jealousy because they would like to have, they don't have a wish-fulfilling tree, and they would like to have this fruit. And the gods from their side, they generate the pride that they possess this fruit, they possess this amazing wish-fulfilling tree, and that creates the conflict. So as you can see, around the very center, the central circle that has the three animals, you can see two sections. One is the descending section that is a black path, and the other one is an ascending section that is a white path. And the white path shows you the progression from a human to higher and higher state. Also, at the top, as I'm looking at the picture at the top right of the picture, you will see the Buddha, and the Buddha is pointing his finger upwards. This comes actually quite a lot from the Chinese tradition. They used to depict the Buddha with the finger pointing upwards. This is the Buddha saying, all right, this is the way that you go round and round in cyclic existence, but look, there is liberation. There's something higher. There is liberation. The other element that we need to observe is that this whole circle of cyclic existence appears to be in the mouth of the Lord of Death. So the Lord of Death is like holding, grasping with his hands, and the whole wheel is in his mouth. And what does that indicate? It indicates that we are at the mercy of the Lord of Death, and we experience no happiness. We experience suffering again and again. So this is where we find ourselves having rebirth within this cyclic existence. This is the situation. So looking one more time at this representation of the wheel of existence, we have the central circle, we have the black and the white, and then after that, right outside of that, we have the different types of existence. You should be able to identify the hells. Also the hungry ghost with great desire, since they are lacking food and drink. We have the humans, and then we also have the gods. And at the external rim, we have the 12 links of dependent origination, beginning with ignorance, represented by a blind man, and concluding with the picture that shows carrying a dead body. So these are the 12 links of dependent origination. Looking at this particular picture, this drawing, you will understand where you find yourself. And as we say, this acts as a way for developing renunciation. In the first verse, talks about renunciation as the gateway for fortunates aspiring liberation, isn't it? So by looking at the many faults of cyclic existence, we turn our mind away from it. As we say here, we are discussing the three principal elements of the path. Renunciation is one of them, and then we have bodhicitta and correct view. So Rinpoche was saying, the story was that someone presented from a faraway land, presented a present, an expensive present to the king of Gaia. And this is how the king of Gaia asked the Buddha what to do. And the Buddha said, make this painting. And then he sent the painting back to this faraway land. So Rinpoche was saying, maybe the faraway land was Singapore. Maybe the people of Singapore benefited from having this painting. We can interpret it this way today. So we have introduced here the basics of what makes us enter within cyclic existence, take rebirth there, and go round and round. As we say, is the three main afflictions. We have our attachment represented by the bird. We have our hatred represented by the snake, and we have the confusion represented by the pig. So this is how we enter, and we keep going round and round. Rinpoche was saying, I hope you will have that picture in your mobile phones, carry it with you all the time, and keep opening that picture on your mobile phone. Use it once for good, because this is a method for generating renunciation. And just think, as long as I am within this cyclic existence, there is no happiness. There is only suffering. Anything I do, everywhere I go, it is suffering. So if I want liberation, I need to come out of this. Okay, so it says, without perfect renunciation, you cannot pacify the yearning for the pleasures and fruits of samsara's ocean, and the craving for existence keep you thoroughly enchained. You should first seek true renunciation. So it talks here about generating renunciation. So it is very important to consider that although we have obtained this precious human rebirth, there is death, there is impermanence, and then in relation to that, we also have to consider the law of cause and effect, that from non-virtuous actions, suffering will follow. From virtuous actions, happiness follows, and that law of cause and effect is infallible. So this is something that we have to consider again and again as much as possible in order to generate the mind, a genuine mind of renunciation. So we have covered verses with this meaning. We have covered verses 4 and 5, and we continue with verse number 6. So it says, all right, even if you have generated the mind of renunciation is important, that's not enough. You need to generate the mind of bodhicitta. Furthermore, if such renunciation is not sustained by the perfect awakening mind, it will not become a condition for the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, intelligent ones generate the supreme awakening mind. We'll continue with the next two verses, number 7 and 8, that indicate the way to think in order to generate the mind of bodhicitta. So it describes the condition of living beings. It says, swept away by the 4 powerful rivers and bound tightly with fetters of karma most secure, trapped in the iron mesh of self-grasping, enveloped by the thick mist of ignorance. So this describes a very desperate situation. First of all, it says swept away by the 4 powerful rivers. It's talking here of how we find ourselves carried within cyclic existence. Everything begins with ignorance, and then in addition to that, our attachment, our hatred, our confusion, our craving just keeps us, pulls us in within cyclic existence. And it's not that we are free. In addition to be drawn into this, we are bound tightly by the fetters of karma. So it is as if we are bound with a rope that is very difficult to undo. And to make things even worse, we are trapped within the iron mesh of self-grasping. So you're like under a net, you're tightly bound, and you're swirling within these waters of cyclic existence. So this is a very desperate situation. But the worst thing is in the last line, enveloped by the thick mist of ignorance. So you are in thick blackness. The blackness, the darkness here is due to our ignorance. At least if you were thrown in the river, tied up and caught in a net like this, and it was daytime, maybe someone could see you. Maybe you could do something. Maybe you could find a way of escaping what is happening. But if it is in the middle of the night and it is pitch dark, no one will see you, and you cannot do anything. You cannot read the landscape around you. Okay, so this is the situation everybody is in. So number 8, they endlessly take birth within cyclic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the 3 types of suffering. The suffering of suffering, which is the pain we experience, for example, when we are sick. The suffering of change. And what do we mean here by the suffering of change? The suffering of change is actually every experience, every sensation of pleasure that we have. All right. So the pleasure and the relief that we have, let's say it's cold and you put the heater on or you put the clothes on. Then you're very hot, you put the air conditioner on, right? There is pleasure in that, but actually it doesn't remain. Or you're hungry, you get food and so on and so forth. And then you get to the other extreme and it becomes uncomfortable again. So every pleasurable experience is not something which is stable. It's just going to change. This is what we describe as the suffering of change. And then the all-pervasive suffering. So ceaselessly tormented by the three kinds of suffering. Contemplating this condition of your mothers, you must generate the supreme awakening mind. So here we have this expression, contemplate the condition of your mother. So we have said that we need to see all sentient beings as our mother. This was last weekend also, we described this and we went through this example. So you begin by considering the kindness of the mother of this life, and then you think that all sentient beings have played the role of the mother to you, and therefore they have been extremely kind to you in all occasions, in all situations. They have only been kind. Now, in terms of kindness, it's not enough to keep saying, oh, my mother has been kind, my mother has been kind, because this is just lip service, right? You must do something about it. Then you must take care of your mother if your mother is in trouble. So we understand that we want to repay the kindness. So we say, if they are in a condition like this, I will take it upon myself. This is my responsibility. I will free them from suffering. And then you think, okay, but right now I don't have the capacity to do this. Who has the power to do this? Only someone who reaches the state of Buddhahood. Therefore, I must reach Buddhahood in order to carry on this responsibility of helping all sentient beings. So at the very last line of verse 8, it says, you must generate the supreme awakening mind. So this is the instruction for generating bodhicitta. We'll continue with the next verse, number 9. Without the wisdom realizing the ultimate nature, though you gain familiarity with renunciation and the awakening mind, you will not be able to cut the root of samsaric existence. So strive in the methods for realizing dependent origination. So here he's talking about developing the correct view, which is, the wisdom realizing the ultimate reality, because this is the only thing that has the power to cut through, to destroy the root of cyclic existence. So you can see the advice, urging advice of Lama Tsongkhapa, who says, strive, make effort in the methods for realizing the subtle view of dependent origination. So what we need to understand here is that due to great familiarity that we have, all objects appear to us as if they were established from their own side. And of course, we believe this through great familiarity. This is how everything appears to us. But what we say here is that they do not exist in this way. We can illustrate this through a couple of examples. The first example is the example of the relative location. So you're over here, your location is always over here, and you're looking at the mountain over there, and you say, oh, this location is over there. And then you begin to travel, and you go from location A to location B. When you get to location B, that used to be over there, you're not thinking over there anymore. You're thinking over here, right? Your current location is always over here. And then you look at your previous location, location A, and now this location A has become over there, okay? So what was over here has now become over there. And that indicates that there is no mountain over here and mountain over there existing from its own side, right? You cannot find and point a finger and say, oh, this is the mountain over there. That thing does not exist. It's just a relative position. It does not exist from its own side. Similarly, you have one individual or two individuals, you could say, that are walking up the mountain path, right? So what is happening? Again, the low position and the high position, these things are relative. Just have an individual that is walking up, is going up, it reaches the mountain path, then it's walking down and comes to the lower position. So my position, where I am up and here, up and down, it's all relative, does not exist from its own side. All right, so with all this information, take all this in mind, and maybe we'll have time for questions and answers. And especially today, we looked at the painting of Sipakol, of the Wheel of Existence. So how was this for you? What do you think?
Hi, Rinpoche. I'd like to know, what is the most difficult in attaining a complete renunciation?
So, all right, so what is the biggest obstacle for generating renunciation? The biggest problem is that actually we are attached to samsara. We are attached to where we are. You look at your place, let's say your country, and you say, I'm very happy here. You look at your house and you say, I'm very happy. I really like this. This is very nice. And this actually indicates that you do not see a fault. You cannot overcome your attraction for cyclic existence unless you see it being in the nature of suffering. But we don't see it as having fault. We don't see it as being in the nature of suffering. Actually, we see it as being great pleasure, great enjoyment, and we like it, and we want more of this. But when we talk about samsara, you have to understand that samsara refers to our own body. This is the samsaric aggregates that we have, and that thing is in the nature of suffering, is not in the nature of pleasure. But the thing is that we don't know that, and due to our ignorance, we generate this incredible attachment for this. We cannot bear the thought to be separated. And due to that, we create karma. And the karma, the way that we act, creates a karma to take rebirth in the three lower migrations: the hells, the hungry ghosts, and the animals. And once we're there, the only thing that we experience is suffering. We talked the other day about the suffering of the hungry ghosts. And we say for 100 years, they do not even get a drop of water. Even looking at water, the great ocean dries up. At summer, the moonlight burns them. In winter, the sunlight freezes them. So they're there, they're completely thirsty. First of all, they cannot see any water. There could be a whole ocean of water in front of them. And even if they see it and perceive it, just looking at it causes that water to dry, to empty. So they would not be able to drink anything. They cannot drink anything. And then it's that other thing about how the moon and the sun affects them. In summer, when the weather is very hot, when you come out at night and there is the moonlight has this cooling effect on us. On hungry ghosts, the moonlight is, when they come into the moonlight, it even burns them even more. Then in winter, when we come into the sunlight, we enjoy this because this gives us warmth. But for the hungry ghosts, it's the opposite. So the sunlight is freezing for them. If we take rebirth as an animal, then there is quite a lot of suffering. Okay, those of you who are not vegetarians, what we eat as humans, the main meal is meat. And that meat actually is the meat of another animal, whatever is the species of that other animal, right? And when we say that we eat meat, we eat the flesh of another animal, it's not that we wait for the animal to die of natural causes. Actually, we kill the animal in order to obtain that meat. So if you are born as an animal, you are somebody else's meal. So you have that incredible suffering, that anxiety, no matter what type of rebirth you take. So even if you are born as an ant, as a small insect, you will become the next meal of a bigger insect or of another animal, let's say, for example, a bird. right? Because birds consume quite a lot of insects and so forth. So always, if you are born as an animal, the bigger animal eats the smaller animal, and this is the rule. So your flesh is there as the meal for some other predator, and we humans and bigger animals, obviously, we consume and we kill and we eat the flesh of many other animals. So if you are born as an animal, this is your fate. There's a lot of suffering in that. Now, in the West, you might look at animals in a different way. So, for example, you could have a dog or a cat and so forth. And our pets, of course, we take very good care of them. But there is no guarantee that you will end up, if you take rebirth as an animal, there is no guarantee that you will end up as someone's beloved pet. So Rinpoche was saying, for example, in Tibet and in many other countries, even dogs, are left without having someone to take care of them, and they have to fend for themselves, which is a very hard life. There's a lot of suffering. So any type of animal rebirth comes with this incredible danger of life. Basically, you are somebody else's next meal. So sometimes we see it like in documentaries, like, for example, National Geographic and so forth, and you see those scenes where you have a buffalo and the buffalo is attacked by a tiger or a lion, and he, grabs it by the throat and so on and forth, and it's killed. Often we watch those things and we watch them just as a documentary, right? It doesn't involve me. It's just like there's a buffalo out there somewhere. But when you watch it and you think, now, if it was me reborn as this buffalo, not some other one, me reborn as this buffalo, how would it be for me if I had to go through this experience? So it is like this. Sometimes we see it as a video, as a documentary, and we watch it as, it's like a spectacle. You watch it and it's a spectacle. You don't necessarily associate it to yourself, but just think, it could be me, that creature that is attacked, that is killed. Sometimes you see acts of barbarism, of, breaking the bones, carrying away the bones and so forth. And you say, wherever you can use actually this opportunity of looking at these documentaries and just say, whatever type of rebirth I have, this could be happening to me, this could be me right now. So use it to generate renunciation. Understand that wherever you're born within cyclic existence, there is suffering. All right, so if you have another question, we take another one. If you don't, then we stop here for today.